welcome everyone. Thank you for joining the Mount Vernon Lee Chamber of Commerce Thursday at noon. We're delighted to have with us Roderick L. Johnson, Lending Relations Small Business Development Center Project Officer for the SBA District Office. And we'll introduce Rod in just a few minutes. But as we begin, if everyone will just check your microphones, make sure you're on mute so it doesn't affect the audio for the program. These Thursday at noon webinars, if I can pull up my other slide here, are sponsored by Fairfax County EDA. We appreciate their sponsorship in collaboration with some other jurisdictions in Northern Virginia. They have developed this work in northernvirginia.com, which is a website that has resources for people looking for work, people who may have been displaced by the pandemic, that are changing industries or looking for work. This is a great resource. There are hundreds of jobs on here. And it's a resource for employers if you have jobs that you would like to have listed on the website also. We'd like to recognize the Chamber's strategic partners. These are businesses that support the Chamber on a higher level, and we appreciate their support. And just real quick, I want to mention a couple of events we have coming up in May. We have the General Assembly report. We'll be hearing from two of our state senators. Senator Surville is on the call today. He'll be speaking on May 20th. Scott, thank you for doing that. Senator Barker and three of our delegates. And then we'll be hosting our annual scholarship reception on May 24th at the Fairfax. This will be an in-person event, so attendance is limited. If you're interested in coming, register. It'll be kind of first come, first serve. So as I mentioned before, our guest speaker today is Rod Johnson with the SBA. In the past year, there's been so much new legislation dealing with assistance for businesses impacted by the COVID pandemic, and the SBA is the central player in all of these relief efforts. And Rod, he spent 32 years in commercial banking as a commercial loan officer, a loan underwriter, a special asset officer, and a commercial team leader at banks such as Citibank, Nation Bank, Wells Fargo. He's also licensed as a property, casual, life, and health insurance broker. He began his SBA career 2 years ago. Has it been 2 years now, Rod, or maybe
3 years actually, 3 years.
Working with the Office of Disaster Assistance. So we're really happy to have someone. It's really helpful to have someone like Rod who knows both the business side and the lending side of these SBA loans. And Rod, we really appreciate your joining us, and we'll turn the time over to you.
All right, thank you, Holly. I certainly appreciate it. Again, my name is Rod Johnson. I serve two functions at the SBA. The first one is as the lender relations specialist. So in that job, what I do is I first open the vault doors for you business owners, okay? So that the lenders are willing to lend money to you. And they do that through the SBA's financing programs. Most of you have heard about the 7A and the 504 and the microloans and SBA Express. So that's how they lend money to you. In fact, since I've just mentioned that, right now, the SBA Express, instead of it being capped at $350,000, it now goes up to $1 million because of COVID-19, okay? The good thing is, instead of the bank getting a 50% guarantee, now the bank gets a 75% guarantee to provide that loan to you, okay? Here's the other great thing for both you and the bank. You as the borrower do not pay any SBA fees whatsoever for getting an SBA loan, okay? Because, you know, it could be anywhere from 3 to 3.5%. And yeah, that money would be financed through the loan, right? Or added to the loan amount. But now there are no SBA fees to the borrower, and the banks don't have to pay the fee to the SBA for doing the loan. Okay. Now, the good thing about the SBA Express is that the bank uses their own documents. So that means the loan gets processed a lot faster than the regular 7A. All right, so now let's go to 7A. So we know that the 7A goes up to $5 million. And instead of the bank getting a 75% guarantee, now they receive a 90% guarantee to do your loan. Okay, so that's a lot of dollars. I mean, look, that's about $4 million easily that's covered by the SBA to do a loan for you guys. Okay, no fees. The 504 program, no fees by either you or the bank. So now the bank and you have incentives to actually do an SBA loan because there are no fees. And frankly, the banks are getting a higher percentage of their loans guaranteed through us. Okay. So I thought I would mention that to you since I was talking about SBA programs. All right. So the second part of my job is I oversee the small business development centers in Northern Virginia and Washington, D.C. And as you know, it comes under George Mason. So they have 4 locations in Old Town Alexandria, Springfield, Leesburg, and of course in Fairfax. Okay. So oversee the SBDCs and making sure that you guys are getting the technical assistance that you need to start, grow, and sustain your businesses. So it keeps me pretty busy. All right. Those 2 positions really keep me busy. Pre-COVID-19, I was spending a lot of time in my car, okay, going around to the SBDCs, actually going out and seeing you guys, the borrowers, okay, because I wanted to make sure that you guys got connected with the right bank based on your industry, because not all banks lend or like to lend to every industry. So with me having 30 years of experience in commercial banking and competing against most of the banks here, I know which banks like to specialize in what industries. All right, so I started at the SBA in the Office of Disaster Assistance. And I was working on Hurricane Maria and, oh gosh, I forget the other one, but there were 2 hurricanes, if you remember, that had hit Puerto Rico. And so I had Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands as my assignment. And you wonder why I don't have any hair? That's because it drove me crazy with Puerto Rico and Virgin Islands because it was just so much devastation there and such a need, okay? And personally, I as a government, I think we pulled out too early and not continuing to offer assistance. But anyway, that was my entree into the SBA. So I feel for the guys down there in Fort Worth, Texas, that are trying to accept applications for the EIDL loan, for the Restaurant Rescue Fund, okay, and for the Shuttered Venue Opportunity Grant. Just for EIDL alone, and I don't have the numbers for the other 2, well, yes, I do. But for EIDL alone, we had over 8 million applications from across the country. 8 million applications, okay? And I thought I was doing something with the Puerto Rico guys. We didn't have 8 million applications, okay? For the Restaurant Rescue Fund, that has only been open 2 days. The portal opened at 12:30 p.m. Monday, and we've already had 186,000 applications, okay? 2 days. And what time is it now? All right, so the portal will have been open 2 days, well now, yeah, 2 days. 186,000 applications. I don't think that $28.6 billion, and this is a Rod Johnson editorial, I don't think the $28.6 billion is going to last to the end of the month, okay? If we already have that many applications, the portal has only been open 2 days. All right, so now there's the Shuttered Venue Opportunity Grant, Operators Grant, excuse me. All right, so that portal officially opened last week. I'm still waiting to receive the numbers for that, how many applications we already have for that. So there's a lot going on at the SBA, as you know, but I'm gonna give you a little known secret. But as you know, we pretty much have run out of the PPP money. However, if you are a woman-owned, socially disadvantaged, or economically disadvantaged company, then you can go to a certified development financial institution. They have $8 billion left, but it's specifically for minorities. So if you've heard of the Latino Economic Development Corp, if you've heard of the Washington Area Community Investment Fund, if you've heard of City First Bank, those and Industrial Bank, but I think Industrial Bank actually has closed its portals because they're overwhelmed. But those are your certified development financial institutions locally. And then if you want to go all the way up to Baltimore, Harbor Bank, okay? So those are your local CDFIs. They are still processing money, but for minorities only, okay? So I just wanted to let you know that. Okay, so let's give you the quick update on, and I'm sorry we don't have the slides. My laptop was still, spinning as we started this, but they'll get the slides out to you so that you'll have them. All right, so let's talk about first the EIDL. So let me give you the update. All right, so we all know that on April 6th, the new administrator, Ms. Guzman, raised the ceiling from $150,000 to $500,000. Now, little birdie has told me that Ms. Guzman is talking to Congress to see if we can get that, even that 500,000 raised to 2 million. If you remember, back around March 20th last year, it was the EIDL program that was actually started first, not PPP. It was EIDL. PPP came on April 2nd. EIDL was first. And if you remember, it went up to $2 million. But because we had such a flood of applications for the program, that we cut it from 2 million down to $500,000 and then down to 150,000, okay? Because we wanted to get as much money out there as we could across the country. All right, so right now, as of April 6th, it's $500,000. It's a loan, it's not a grant. So don't confuse it with the EIDL advance. This one is the loan, okay? It's still at 3.75% for businesses fixed, 2.75% for nonprofits, no prepayment penalty or fees, okay? Now, the reason I liked EIDL was because unlike PPP, although most people like the forgiveness part of PPP, but with PPP, remember, it's 60%, 40%, 60% payroll, 40% operating expenses. With EIDL, you don't have that restriction. Plus, it's a 30-year loan. As you know, most commercial loans are not 30 years, okay? So you have a long repayment period. Collateral, a UCC1, or basically a blanket lien on the business assets, personal guarantee if the loan is 200,000 or above, okay? So that's your collateral, and of course, personal guarantees over $25,000. So that's your EIDL, right? That's your EIDL update, $500,000, not 150. Well, I hope it goes up to 2 million. The program is still in effect through December 31st, 2021. All right, the Paycheck Protection Program, actually, I gave you the update. It's pretty much closed down. Now, if you don't get 100% forgiveness and you get 50%, 60, 90% forgiveness, if you receive the loan prior to June 5th, 2020, then you have a 2-year repayment period. After June 5th, you have a 5-year repayment period, okay? I just mentioned a 60-40 split. Now, please make sure that you use the money properly. Every morning I see a report with people doing things like literally buying a Maserati, a 35-foot boat, farmland in the Shenandoah Valley, okay? Fraud. So let's make sure that you are using the funds in the way that the program is designed. So let's review. And it's for business expenses. I had somebody call me yesterday, told me they were going to use their PPP to pay their personal mortgage. I said, time out. And I'm glad you called me. because you'd get in trouble. Okay. So let's review. Water, gas, electric, interest on a commercial mortgage. Okay. Comcast or whomever your ISP is for the business. Cell phone, remember it's business cell phone, business landline, PPE, QuickBooks, okay? Restocking your inventory. All of those PPP money can be used for those expenses, okay? So please do not use it for business development. I had a person call me and say, I want to hire 2 new salespeople. Wrong. Let's get a 7A loan for that, or an SBA Express, because that's expansion. PPP is not for expansion. It's for the expenses that I just named. I don't want to read about you in the Washington Post or Washington Business Journal. All right. So let's make sure we use the money in the way that it's appropriated for you to use it. Okay. No personal guarantees, no collateral. Okay. And that was the beauty of this, because now, as business owners, you can't say, oh, the bank turned me down because I didn't show net profits, or my revenues weren't growing, or they didn't like my industry. It was none of that. It was either you supply a 941 or a Schedule C, right? It was either one of those. They even changed the formula for the Schedule C filers. Instead of using line 31, net profit, now they went to line 7, gross profit. Now, honestly, if you had a negative number on line 7 of the Schedule C, that was really a problem. There should never be a negative number on line 7 of the Schedule C. And the formula was easy. Gross income divided by 12 times 2.5, right? If you were a restaurant, gross profit divided by 12 times 3.5. That way you knew how much money you were getting. Real simple formula. So you didn't even have to rely on the bank, right, to tell you how much money you were going to receive. But I can't state it enough. Use the money within the designs of the program. In fact, you do have some employees that have blown the whistle on their employees for using the money in the wrong way. Why? Because the employees weren't getting paid. Okay, so they went to SBA.gov and looked up the investigator general and typed in what was going on. I don't want that to happen to you. Okay, all right, so let's go to the SVOG, right? Shuttered Venue Opportunity Grant. So again, I said that was opened last week. Okay, now, expenses, payroll, rent, utility, advertising, state and local taxes, gas, water, electric, okay? Almost same as PPP. So that's how you use the money. Now I'm gonna give you a email address, because if you have questions, don't call me, because that's not what I do in the district office. I give the information to the banks and the resource partners to assist you guys. So here we go. SVO grant at SBA.gov. And that way you can find out what your, where you are, if you've already applied, where you are, right, in the process. So SVO grant at SBA.gov. Now, there is a priority, okay? And the priority is if you suffered a 90% loss, then for the first 21 days that the program is open, you get priority. Then if it's 70% loss, all right, day 22 to 30, then you get priority 2. And then if it's 25%, then 30 days or more, right, then it's your priority. So those are the top priorities, 90, 70, 25 loss in terms of revenue, okay? Now, you'll get 45% of your 2019 revenues for SVOG, okay? 45% of 2019, revenue. So I've given you right there the formula. right? I've given you the formula for basically PPP, and you got the formula for SVOG. You now have how the money is supposed to be used, and you have an email address that you can contact. Now, let's go back to EIDL for a minute. How can I forget this? You want an increase from 150 to 500,000. Take this down, all one word: COVID EIDL increase requests at SBA.gov. COVID EIDL increase requests at SBA.gov. All right, Rod, what do I do with that? You're going to put in your business name, address, telephone number, EIN, and the word increase in the email, along with your current 10-digit, is it 10 digits? Yeah, your 10-digit current EIDL, so that they can easily pull it up. You'll receive an email stating what the additional information that they need from you. I can already tell you that they're going to have you fill out a 4506T. So I hope you filed your 2018, 2019, and 2020 tax returns. Okay, it's critical. Then you're going to have to provide, well, I'll give you the update, year-to-date, April 30, 2021 balance sheet and income statement. Because now we're in May. It was March 31st, 2021 balance sheet and income statement, but now that we're in May, you should be supplying them with the year-to-date April. Okay, 30. All right, so now you know what information to give them. You know where to email them to ask for the increase, and you know, again, the information to give them, okay? So now let's do the Restaurant Rescue Fund. All right, here you go, restaurants.sba.gov, restaurants.sba.gov, okay? So that's where you're going to go to apply. And there's this form called a 3172, if I remember off the top of my head. It's a form 3172. All right, so we know we got $26.8 billion appropriated by the Biden-Harris team for this fund, okay? So who's eligible? I'm like everybody in the restaurant, bakery, alcohol, everybody's eligible. All right, so here's what I mean. Restaurants, food stands, food trucks, food carts, caterers, bars, bakeries, brew pubs, tasting rooms, tap rooms, wineries, distilleries, okay? My goodness. Inns, bed and breakfasts, okay? All of you, if there are any restaurants or in the food business, that's who's eligible, okay? So now we know who's eligible. Now, how much money can you get? Up to $5 million per location, but it caps at 10 million, right? The total for any affiliated businesses. The minimum that you must receive is $1,000. If you can't get $1,000, then you won't be eligible. Okay, so you got to get a minimum of 1,000. Okay, here's the good thing. Unlike the SVOG, you don't have to register at sam.gov. I'm so glad, right? Because that can be an ordeal in itself. So luckily you don't have to do that. All right, you don't have to have a DUNS number or a CAGE number, thank goodness, okay? You don't need that. So that's a good thing. Now, who's ineligible? Well, of course, publicly traded companies, if you're permanently closed, if you're a nonprofit organization, if you're a state or local government run entity, okay? And if you can't get at least $1,000 in funding, you are not eligible for this program, okay? So now you know who's ineligible. Now, the organizations that are eligible, right? C Corps, S Corps, LLCs, partnerships, 1099s, okay? B corporations, you know, those corporations that are eco-friendly, right? So you got to do select either a C or S Corp on the application, because it's going to ask you as a B Corp, how are you taxed? Okay, just so you know. So that's important Now, I forgot, franchises are eligible, okay? Franchises are eligible for this, the Subways, the Chipotles, all those guys, okay? All of you are eligible. Now, we must be able to find you on the SBA directory. So you got to go to sba.gov, look under franchises, see if your franchise is on the SBA franchise directory. If it's not, and you think you should be, then you're going to send the email, not to me. Everybody likes to send the emails to me, but you'll send it to franchise@sba.gov. Franchise@sba.gov. They will look over your franchise's documentation, and then they will tell you if, they'll put you on the list, okay? So make sure that you email them. Now, I get a lot of questions about bankruptcies. Now, as a banker, I hate that word bankruptcy. And I don't care if it's a 7, 11, 12, 9, or 13. I just hate that word. Normally, you're ineligible under regular SBA guidelines. However, since we're in a pandemic, listen closely. You must have an approved, and I circle and underline and everything else, and put in parentheses, approved. You have to have or be operating under an approved reorganizational plan for Chapter 11, 12, or 13. Now, obviously, if you file in Chapter 7, you're not going to be eligible because you're liquidating everything. So if you file for Chapter 7, you're ineligible. Now, some people will say, well, I have filed. That's not good enough. You filing for the 12, 13, or 11 is not good enough. It's an approved plan, right? So you're going to have to show that plan, that approved plan from the courts. Okay? Not that you filed. Now, people talk about, well, what's the definition of permanently closed? Let me give it to you. Permanently closed does not include businesses who temporarily close because the Commonwealth of Virginia and the city of Alexandria said you can't operate. So they closed you down for 2 or 3 months, okay? And then they said you could reopen. So you're fine as long as you are doing that. But if you're permanently closed, no, you cannot get this money, okay? So now, how does the RRF, as we call it, interact with PPP? Well, if you have a PPP, then they're going to reduce the amount of your RRF by the amount of your PPP, okay?